Good morning, Krista. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today on the Now Show. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me on your platform as well. I had a blast on Spiritual Seekers. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, we enjoyed having you. It was great.
Thank you. So just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you gotten to own the store that I love. I want to buy everything when I'm in there. Also creating the membership, just kind of some steps as to how you started your awakening process.
Sure. So 5 years ago, I was working as a dental assistant, which I enjoyed for a long time, but I got to the point where I really wasn't enjoying it anymore, and said to my husband, I always had a dream of having a store. I wanted to have a boutique where I'd sell pretty things, and I always talked about my someday store. So we decided it was someday was now, and we opened up a shop in St. Andrews by the sea, and yeah, it was a dream come true. I loved it, and it did really well, and enjoyed my days playing in my shop. And the shop that was in the space before me was actually a crystal shop. So
Oh,
the first summer I opened, sometimes kids on vacation with their families would come in and they would be looking for the crystal shop because they remember picking up rocks and specimens there, and they'd be sad that it was gone. So I thought, well, I could bring in some crystals and specimens. And like most kids, I had always been, drawn to them. And so it just seemed to be part of my path that I would start working with crystals. And so brought them into the store and began to learn more and more about them and the energy of them. And then 2.5 years ago, we opened our second store, which was in Fredericton, which is a little closer to where I live. And so as I've kind of continued on, I kind of just keep expanding in that area. We carry the sage and singing bowls and a wide variety of crystals and tumbled stones and large specimens. So yeah, so then just after we opened that store, my 16-year-old son got really sick. He had a bleed in his brain, and it was just out of the blue. And next thing we knew, he was in intensive care in the neurosurgery unit at St. John Hospital. So it was a really scary time. And he healed and is completely fine now. But the year following that, I suffered with horrible nerve pain, and like I didn't have an accident, like nothing had happened that I knew of that would bring on this pain. And I was trying all the usual routes, the family doctor and physiotherapy, and I was on a lot of medication just to try and get through the day. And there were weeks where I was laid up where I couldn't get off the couch. Like as soon as I was upright, the pain would just kind of put me back on the couch. So it was a tough year. And when I had a lot of that kind of downtime, when I couldn't do anything else, I was listening to podcasts, and it was kind of like the start of an awakening for me. I just started to realize that there was, a deeper side of life, that, we aren't just sheep, just letting, whatever happens to us is what, we've just got to deal with it. And I started to realize that we create our own reality. And I was just blown away by what I was learning. I was like, how come I never knew this before? I'm in my 40s and no one ever told me this stuff before. But
yeah.
I guess it's true. You have to be ready to start to learn these things. And then after about a year of suffering with the pain, I finally tried Reiki. And one session of Reiki basically healed me of the nerve pain. So it was quite an amazing experience. Basically, when my son had been sick, I trying to be brave for him and had a new store and just trying to look after things. I never really took the time to kind of heal like the trauma that I went through at that point. And so the pain had developed as a symptom of that. And when I went to the Reiki appointment, she completely released it. It was like just a full out ball session. I was crying, and I do not like to cry. Like I'm getting better at it now, but I would never have wanted someone who I barely knew to see me cry like that. So, but it was like, there's no stopping it. It's coming out kind of thing. And I crying and I was coughing, like I didn't have a cold or anything, but it was just like this huge energy release that had been sitting on my sciatic nerve, and it was just coming out. And after that appointment, I came off all of the medications I was on. Like, it was just gone. It was amazing. And so, I started to think, okay, there must be other people who are kind of on the same journey as me, that, you know, they're seeking answers to the big questions, and started thinking about, you know, how I could, you know, have like almost like a club, like a group where we explore together. So that's when I started Seekers, which is, it's a membership group, and we opened the doors last Halloween, October 31st we started, and it's just awesome. We're really learning a lot. We talk to a lot of different people every week. We have a guest, like we had you one week, and it's just awesome. I'm loving it.
That's amazing. I actually was just like writing out a post today on my media about how I can feel so alone during that process. And you're like, well, how come some people can eat stuff, but I can't? Or how comes that works for them, but it doesn't work for me? Or why do they have energy and I don't have energy? Like, you kind of just feel a bit alone when you're going through that journey of awakening or figuring things out differently. So having a platform like that's beautiful, to be like, I'm not alone. There's other people that also feel like me. Like,
exactly. Yeah. And we just this past weekend, we had our first Seekers retreat, and a few of the members and myself, we got together in a lodge on a lake for 24 hours, and it was amazing. And that was one of the things, like, we can talk about all these things that, you know, you can't always just talk about with everybody in your life, you know? So knowing you got a safe space to talk about energy and, you know, spirits and all that sort of thing, it was awesome.
That's great. So what other things, if someone were to join the membership, what are some things they can expect to get from the membership?
So it's a Facebook platform, so they can check in with the group. Generally Wednesdays we have our expert guest. We've had all sorts of different people. Recently we've had an animal intuitive from Colorado. This week we have a energy alchemist from Manhattan. So I'm really excited to speak with her. Her name is Jimaja, so she's really cool.
Oh my gosh, I'm like, what? I just love that.
We've had a hoodoo priestess, so I didn't know really anything about hoodoo and what that's all about. So it's just fascinating stuff to learn about. We had the producer of a TV show called Rescue Mediums. He was one of our first guests. And then we've also had one of the mediums from the TV show who lives in Spain. We've had the magical creatrix, Sarah Cornforth, she taught us a lot about moon energy and creativity. Anyway, the list goes on. And so that's what we do every week on Wednesday. Thursday nights, we have like a group chat. So it's just a time to I'll get online and, you know, talk about things that have been going on, if people have experiences to share or anything like that. And I do the same. It's just kind of a group chat. We also do intuition development. Ooh. So every Monday we have a challenge where you can kind of test your intuition.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and I'm also working on units, so that if you really want to kind of harness your intuition and tap into it, you know, it's going to be kind of like a learning process. So you can go through the units one by one to help.
Oh, I like that.
Access your intuition. We all have it, but a lot of us are kind of like cut off from it. So kind of open up that connection again. Yeah.
That's great. Any wisdom or words of advice for someone who's new as a seeker? Some places that, or some books they can read, or places they can go, or just some tips for anyone that's new and maybe feeling overwhelmed with so much information, but also like lost because we're not taught these things.
I just, I would say just keep exploring, and be patient, because you may want all the sort of downloads to come at once, but they won't come until you're actually ready. So just keep exploring, and when it's right for you, you'll open up to these new kind of just aha moments will happen, and you'll be like, it'll be wonderful and it'll be exciting, but you have to be ready for them, and they won't come until you're ready. So, listen to podcasts like yours. I listen to a lot of Abraham Hicks.
Oh, yes. I love the rant pages.
Yes, exactly. So I find her very inspiring. And, being a business owner, James Wedmore was a business podcast, but he also, his beliefs are on the kind of more spiritual side. So
Yes, I
incorporating,
just listened to him as
so
well.
yeah, so he kind of helped me kind of, transition. I maybe wouldn't have been quite ready to jump right into, Abraham Hicks at first, but listening to James, it kind of started opening me up to other things. So just take it, one step at a time. And I think you just follow what you're drawn to, like,
That's important.
yeah, you might hear of a book and you're like, oh, that kind of catches your interest. Well, get it or download it or whatever. And, just follow your joy, do the things that bring you joy. I think that's important, and your interests.
I can really feel your joy when you talk about what you do.
Yeah, I love it. When I can't believe how much I enjoy having the group. Like, it feels like when I started it, I knew I felt called to do it. Like, sometimes I would be scared to about it and think like,
Yeah,
what am I doing? But then I just had this inner feelings like, it's what you're supposed to do. Just do it and see where it goes. And so I love it so much. I get a lot of joy from it. So it's wonderful.
perfect. And going from that transition of doing that, I call it the 3D jobs, like the jobs that the world's telling you to do and work that, like you said, the sheep and get herded in the right direction and go along with the things. How did you transition from that to opening your own business? Because I know I'm personally like, I'm kind of still in between. I'm like, I have my own business, but I am still working for someone else. But my goal in the next couple of months is to like just be doing what I'm doing. So what was that like as a transition, and what are some things that you learned along the way?
Yeah, it was really scary when I,
Hmm.
signed that lease and gave my notice at my, good job with benefits and everything. I'm sure a lot of people thought I, was nuts. And I, I lost a lot of sleep thinking like, oh my goodness, what have I done? But luckily my husband was really supportive. He was just like, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work. You can go back to being a dental assistant. So, you got to try
True.
things. Life's all about taking risks. And, I never wanted to look back and have any regrets. So, I think you need to follow the fear. A lot of times the thing that is so scary is exactly the thing you need to do. And I think you need to lean into the fear. And, yeah, you just, that saying, leap and the net will appear.
Yes.
You have to trust in that. You have to trust that the universe has your back and everything's going to work out okay. Just be focusing on the things you love, the desires you have. They're there for a reason. They're there to guide you. So everything will be okay. It's
Yes. I
scary,
feel like
but
your next course will be called Follow the Fear.
yeah, exactly.
I really liked that one. I was like, I can
Yeah,
see
that's a
you
good
rocking that. That should be a class or a course. Like, I really like that.
Yeah, because we're not alone, we're not in this on our own. So we just have to trust that the universe has your back, and everything's going to work out as it is. Not to say that you won't have difficulties, but those difficulties are there to teach you and to learn from. So
And we've been programmed to run away from the fear or to change things to fit what's safe. Whereas now we're trying to redefine our own version of safety and living and what that means. And I
yeah,
gave a talk years ago. It was like a 10-minute one. It was called uh, I'm not fearless, but I fear less. So
yeah,
that's kind
that's a
of a
good
thing I
one.
always come back to. I'm like, you're never not going to have fear, but there's definitely a way that you can fear less, kind of breaking
Yeah.
up that word. So I think that's a
And
really great thing you were talking about.
yeah, and having courage doesn't mean that you don't have fear. It just means proceeding despite the fear. So
Yes. Yes, that's the true medal there. Like, go doing it even though you're shitting your pants.
yeah, exactly.
You're doing it anyway. It's like, I'm always like, because if not, it's like your soul is like dying. Like, it's just like,
It's
oh, and you
true.
can't not do it because you need to feel like you.
Yeah, and you have to challenge yourself.
Yeah. So how has your son been since everything as well? Has he had some big
He's
changes since
great.
all of that? Like his own even spiritual changes and going from something
Well,
that intense?
I'm sure he did, but he's pretty, one of those strong silent types. He doesn't share too much about the,
Yes.
changes in the way he talks. But I know I have two sons, 21 and 19, and I know our older son, when he graduated high school, we were typical parents, like, you got to go to university, you got to do this, you got to get a good education, and so you can make a good living. And then and as I've been learning on my journey, when it came to Andy, my younger son, graduating, I was like, take a year off.
Yeah.
You figure out what you want to do. I was like, go travel for a year. You could, backpack across Europe. Like, I was like
Yes.
encouraging him in a totally different way. So, so he is, I both my boys, I know that whatever path they take, they have to figure that out for themselves now. And where I didn't understand that so much, just a few short years ago when my elder son had graduated. But we're all learning. No matter how old you are, we're still figuring things out.
Yes. What are some things that you do to keep, I guess, spiritually aligned or keeping your energy where it feels good? What are some things that you do, whether it's daily or weekly or monthly, just some things that you incorporate in your life?
Yeah, so I'm huge nature girl. Like, I have two dogs, and I've always been like, the best therapy for me is to get into the woods. Like, take my dogs to some woods road or wheeler trail or whatever, and we just roam. And yeah, that's where I get my inspiration. That's where I feel whole. I get
Mhm.
grounded. So that's really important to me. I know when maybe I'm too busy and I don't get out into nature, like, I start to feel uneasy, have some anxiety. Just, I'm like, oh, I'm just off. And then I know, oh, I haven't reconnected with nature in a few days.
Yeah.
So that's a huge one for me. And I think it's huge for society. I think, a lot of people are so disconnected from nature, and they don't, they don't even realize, what's missing. They aren't happy, but if they could just get into the woods a little bit, some people that live in the cities, they never do,
I can't even
so
imagine that.
I know,
Ugh,
like, you hear about kids that grow up in, like, New York City that have never been outside the city. Like, just breaks my heart,
me
But
too.
yeah, that would be so awful. But I also meditate. I try to meditate every day. I just, this is my room I'm in here is my seeker studio. It's my happy
Ooh.
place. I have an altar set up with a comfy little stool where it's easy to settle in there. So I've got a spot set up that, I can light my candle and just have some quiet time, reconnect, and
Mhm.
listen to the, my inner wisdom. So that's important for me too.
I love how it's really becoming like the seeker is becoming the leader, but the leader is always the seeker. It's like
Yeah.
back and forth. I was like, I'm kind of like getting that message, like that you're that, like a seeker, but you're also like a leader for so many. But it's like always being that student too, as well as the teacher. So I love that balance.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like I don't claim to be an expert at anything, but I have learned a fair amount, so I share what I've learned and keep learning.
That's perfect. Any final words of wisdom or anything that you'd like to share?
Hmm. I think I would just say, just keep following your joy, the things that make you happy, that's what you should do. Even if, I just listened to a podcast actually, and the speaker was saying that, so if you had the entire weekend to yourself, name three things that you would do. And if it's like walking on the beach, watching a funny movie, maybe playing your guitar, that's what you should do. That's
Aww.
as far as it has to go. And the inspiration, when you are doing the things you love, the inspiration for the next step will come.
Oh, I love that. I was like, I needed that reminder too. The inspiration will
Good.
always come. Oh, and one last
Yeah.
thing I wanted to ask you is with the store, for anyone who's local that would be listening to this, where is it? What can they find in there? And I also know that sometimes you offer sessions or something in the store. I haven't been to one, but I've seen the piece of paper by the desk there. So maybe just touch on that for anyone that's local.
Sure. So it's a really eclectic store. So it's called Tweedside Road, which is named after the place where I grew up.
Hmm.
Um, but Tweedside Road is, you'll find the store on the Hanwell Road in Fredericton, 1299 Hanwell Road. And in there you'll find lots of beautiful things, lots of crystals and mineral specimens. You'll find, cool jewelry. You'll find some clothing and purses. It's really eclectic. It's
Uh-huh.
basically a combination of things that I love. So that was always my rule.
Mhm.
If I'm going to carry it in the store, I got to really like it. And
Yes.
then we also sell Fusion Mineral Paint, which is an amazing Canadian-made product for furniture painting. And so we hold workshops, and they're creative workshops, which I think creativity is really important in all of our lives. If you have a creative outlet, that's kind of like meditating. That's giving you a chance to,
Totally.
yeah, just get immersed in something where you don't have to think about, all the little things in life that, kind of take up a lot of room in our mind. So just having a morning where you can just kind of be creative and enjoy the company of some other people, I think it's really important. And sometimes we also hold, we had a medium for a group reading one night. We've had an energy healer come in and talk to us about energy healing and to do a group healing. So we do some things like that there too.
Oh, that's great. Where can people find you on the website or Facebook? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I have a website, but I don't update it really well, but it's tweetsideroad.com. And Facebook is more active. So I've got a Facebook page under Tweedside Road, and also Seekers with Krista Nestoruk is my Facebook page that's open to everybody. And on my page, if you're interested in joining the group, you'll find a link there to become a member.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and being on this show today and sharing all your wisdom and good feels.
My pleasure. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you, Krista.